Please be advised that the views and opinions of the host and guests do not reflect those of the station, the management, and its network. Face the nation. What is the purpose of celebrating our Independence Day? And we did that only recently, the 35th anniversary of Philippine independence. And today we're privileged to have with us one of the country's top historians who has seen and reviewed so many historical facts to determine how our independence has evolved over the past 100 years. We have Professor Xiao Chua to join us today to share with us the experience of monitoring how we have progressed through the years. A pleasant day to you, sir, and welcome to our program, Face the Nation.
Makasaysayang araw to my discoverer, Tito Freddy Abando, and to all our viewers.
How important and how different is this year's celebration?
Well, first of all, Tito Freddy, this year's commemoration of the proclamation of Philippine independence coincided with it's a milestone. It's a milestone commemoration, 125th. It's a jubilee. So it's a very special commemoration which will last for a few years until I think 2026. It will commemorate not just the proclamation of Philippine independence, but also in the next few years, the establishment of the Malolos Congress, the first Philippine Republic, which is the first constitutional democracy in Asia. We will also commemorate the Philippine-American War and the fall of the Republic. So this is the commemoration of the birth of the nation. That's why they called it the 125th anniversary of Philippine independence and nationhood. And because of that as well, yesterday there was a parade, or last June 12, there was a parade that happened at the Quirino Grandstand. We used to have parades, Tito Freddy. Remember when you were in People's Television and I was watching television? We used to have parades every year in the Independence Day. And this was shelved a few years ago for practicality reasons, for austerity. And we just bring it back when we have milestone commemorations. So that's why we had the parade yesterday. And there were also a lot of concerts. There was a concert at the Metropolitan Theater at the Rizal Park. And on other parts of the country, simultaneous flag raising as well. And the government fair, where all the government agencies showcase their service to the nation at the Rizal Park, Luneta. So these were the events and many more that happened to commemorate the milestone 125th anniversary.
Now, what of the Philippine Revolution in 1896 should we remember? Why should we remember? And when we do remember, what does remembering do to us as a people and as a nation?
That is a very good question, Tito Freddy, because remembering is very tricky. Sometimes we just remember the good things, sometimes we just remember the bad things. And when we talk about the birth of the nation, the Philippine Revolution, like actual birthing, it's painful, it's bloody. There were conflicts that happened, of course, in the revolution. We know the story of Aguinaldo Bonifacio, but not only that, a lot of generals also had conflict with each other. But we just don't remember that. we also remember the reasons why we became united in the first place, which is a common pain and a common aspiration. So we look back that yes, a nationhood is not a perfect project. We would always have differences in opinion. We will always be divided by politics, religion, opinions. But in the end, the revolution in 1896, the revolution of 1896, which of course was continued in 1898, was able to defeat 333 years of Spanish colonization in the Philippines, and we became free. And so, in many ways, that is also a reminder to us that whatever the imperfections of democracy and nationhood, we can still talk about our common aspirations and feel solidarity with each other as a nation, and maybe we can do more things together despite the fact that we are a diverse people.
Now, what are the major challenges that we at the present are facing to ensure that whatever our heroes have fought for is not going to be wasted by personal ambitions? Rather, our leaders that we
Right.
elect into office would look at the greater welfare of the majority of our people, especially at a time when you see that poverty is a major concern which the current president has to address, President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos.
Right, right. Well, first of all, it is true that poverty is still a problem. In fact, as the president said yesterday, foreign domination is still a problem because that is a challenge of independence. He actually made quite honest remarks yesterday. And the aspirations that he, again, I am a critic of the Marcoses, but if you're going to look at the speech, the aspirations that he echoed during his Independence Day speech is the aspirations of all the other presidents since Andres Bonifacio. And if you're going to look at it, we still had to make things real. We have to, of course, the parade itself emphasize on the fruits of independence, mga bunga ng kalayaan. And this means that we should celebrate whatever it is that we have now. We should celebrate it, that we have self-government, that the government agencies are working to ensure that services are being given to us. Yet, we should also exercise that freedom to demand more of the government and also to address these problems that the president echoed in his speech. And so, one thing that is also a problem is disinformation. And the disinformation that happens in the country about our history actually makes the people go away from each other, not united, but to the extreme of the political spectrums. And I hope that we will again find common ground despite our differences, and we can only do that when we talk to each other, we converge with each other, and not shun each other. And so what the heroes aspired in their words, Gregoria de Jesus, Emilio Jacinto, Apolinario Mabini, Rizal, that we should be together. We should be united. We can do it. I believe we should believe in ourselves. We should believe in the Filipino that we can do it, but only with much conscious effort that we should have pakikipagkapwa with each other.
How would you look at the quality of leaders that we elect into office? Are they there for the right reasons, which is the country and our people, or their own personal ambitions? And because of personal ambitions coming first, somehow the heroism of our
Right.
ancestors will go to waste.
The problem, Tito Freddy, is that I believe that a lot of people really go to public service. Or I'm talking about elected officials, of course. A lot of people go to public service with the right intentions. But of course, the system allows it that they be corrupted with power. And even the good ones sometimes will turn out so bad. And this is lamentable. And so that is why I think that the strength of our leaders is not just about being strong. When you say strong leadership, you have firm decisions, but also strong of heart. Strong, that your core, despite the fact that politics and making things work in this country is actually compromising. We have to make a lot of compromises. We have to make a lot of engagements Kumbaga, you have to engage with the devil to be able to accomplish something. But again, we hope that we do not lose our core. And I believe that a lot of our leaders still have their core. There are just some who are for self-interests. But I would also like to emphasize that the leaders of this country are not the whole government. There are every day there are employees of the government, kawani, who actually make kabayanihan every day in their service of the nation. But again, the country is made up of its leaders. So leadership really count. But we should always have hope that there are still good people around that we can converge. And again, as private citizen, for example, we should engage the government. We should not shun it. We should not we should not turn a around face from it. Even if we don't agree with it, we should still engage it and we should still work with it.
Now, how do we teach our people? How do we teach our people to ensure that the choices they make are the right choices? And on a personal note, also, how do you expect our children to be responsive with their civic duties as citizens of this country so they become positive in terms of really serving their own needs and their friends and families?
Okay. That's a good question. How do we let people realize that the right to vote, which was not given to our heroes, to the ones who created the nation, and which we have now, they fought for it. I believe that we should always make people realize that the history of that, that process, so we can have those rights. How they fought for it, how they suffered, so that they can give that to us. That's one thing. So you teach history so that people will realize the importance of the rights that we have. Since it's the 125 years of democracy and nationhood, we are able to establish the first democracy in Asia. We should be able to place high importance to the democratic process. Number one. Number two, that we should let our kids realize that everything that we do, every single thing, every decision that we make will have an impact on the overall what they call this situation of the nation. So if you do good, you contribute to that great things that happen to us. But when you do not contribute, when you do not use your right to vote, when you don't exercise your rights, that means that we are not contributing to it, and we make things worse in this country. And that's why, on my part, I still don't have a kid. In the future, I will have, hopefully. But what I'm doing is I'm helping the Department of Education in many ways, suggesting to them ways on how to emphasize not just the lessons of history, but also pakikipagkapwa-tao in the lessons of history, so that this will be taught to the kids. That is what I'm working on now.
What is love of country? And are we truly a nation now where we are, given the challenges that we face on a day-to-day basis? Have we neglected those who are in need? And would you say that our leaders that we elect into office should be more challenged to really deliver what they have promised during elections?
I think the problem, Tito Freddy, is grounding. A lot of people say they love their country, but they do not understand the people. They think that their understanding, which is based on some assumptions of our people, because they were educated in the West, or they were at least educated in a university education, sometimes that takes away the grounding. I think we should listen more to our people so that we will never forget them. That's what President Manuel Quezon said to his daughter Nini. Never forget the poor. So despite the fact that, for example, on my part, when I'm reflecting on your question, I was thinking, what can I do? I think we can give our talents, if we do not have resources, to feed the poor. at least feed them with the spirit of inspire them with the stories, with the way we teach, with the way we do. So all of us, all of our talents, we can use to inspire our people. Let us never forget them, and we can only reach them if we speak their language, if we resonate their aspirations and their mindset. But if we will think that, you know, we're the high and mighty and all the others are bobotantes, I think we will never achieve true nationhood, and there would always be division in the country because we are not understanding each other.
Now, what is love of country? And are we truly a nation of just a country? Or what is nationalism and what is patriotism?
Wow, wow, wow. Love of country means that you just don't love the symbols and you just don't love the state. Some people equate love of country as the love of the leader. Some people equate love of country with the love of the state. Now, of course, all of that is part of it. But when we say love of country, that's the love that you share to your fellow men, the work that you do to at least make the world a better place, make our society a better place. And why are some people not displaying love of country? I don't believe that we don't have love of country. It's just that you have to awaken it in the other people. You have to remind them first of their greatness in order to love our country. I mean, you know, when we talk about love lives, you can never love your partner if you do not know him or her. And same with the country. You cannot love your country if you do not know our country. So we have to, in many ways, when we try to know our country more, we try to know its history, we try to know the culture, not just your culture, but the culture of other Filipinos, because we have different cultures within the nation. Then we will be able to understand. More understanding begets more love for each other, and hopefully that can inspire. So this is the importance of culture, history. I'm emphasizing that in in our solidarity, not just unity. Unity is sometimes futile. When you unite, sometimes if it's not solid, then you will break out. But we get solidified with culture, with history, with our common love for country, and that is when we can do great things together.
How should we relate to other countries, countries like China, at this time where we are in the midst of some concerns regarding territorial
Right.
integrity? So, China has been a neighbor and has been there. And of course, there are challenges given the concerns regarding territory. But how should we relate with other countries to ensure that we're able to develop a more solid foundation for working towards peace and development?
I think public opinion about both China and America are clouded with misconceptions. And this is a big problem for us because some of us may not be understanding what actions we are doing. So I think that we should first know, of course, what is the culture of the Chinese before we can deal with them. Of course, we should know the culture of the Americans so we can deal with them. So, for example, in the Chinese is really about saving face. They do not want to be humiliated. And when we are not doing this diplomatically, and we are not doing this with much caution, then it triggers conflict. And so I hope that we should stand against foreign domination, but we should not antagonize foreign countries. We just stand up against their meddling of our affairs, but we should never ever take away the diplomatic ties and our way of being diplomatic, because we should face the world the way we always do in terms of pakikipagkapwa-tao. But in the pakikipagkapwa-tao means we should understand their sensibilities so we can deal with them better. And we should always think that the foreigners will always have their best interest in their minds, not ours. And so when they deal with us, we should always think not of their interest but of our interest. So, and we should know our interest. We should know what is good for us, so that we can meet halfway as as brothers and sisters in the family of nations.
Now, what should be the most effective manner of making our youth internalize the significance of Independence Day in order to experience what independence of freedom mean?
Well, first of all, there are many ways that we can engage the public through social media. But again, the core of this is to tell a story. We should not make history just a memorization of events, of names, of places. We should tell the story. We should tell the story not just of heroes who are famous, but humanize the situation of the Filipinos at that time, so that they will realize what is it like when you are not free. What is it like when you have no sovereignty? What is it like when when the foreigners are the ones who are um, um, ruling you and not your own people? So I guess when you try to tell that story, people will realize the importance of what we have now and to fight for it and to make it better. Because the other alternative, its history by experiencing it. And by golly, I do not want to experience any tyranny or loss of democracy or human rights ever again. And so the best way for us to, because sometimes you begin to love something when you lose it. And people learn, and people only fight for their rights when they lose it. And we should not get to that point. We should always teach history, and that's why history is very important here.
Well, bottom line, as we approach the home stretch, you have seen the worst. You have also seen the recovery of this country. But, on a day-to-day basis, how should we, every Filipino, contribute his share or his part to ensure that we are moving in the right direction, that we don't forget those who may be in need, and that
Right.
we look at the welfare of our fellow Filipinos who may not be experiencing the same kind of life that we and others are experiencing.
History is comforting. The knowledge of history comforts us because it tells us that we've been through worse things, as you said. We've been through wars, we've been through divisions, we've been through almost civil war, but we're still here. We've been through COVID-19 and we're still here. And it tells us that we can surpass anything as a Filipino if our spirit is willing and if we will work together. And so, with that kind of thought, it means that in your everyday existence as a person, never lose hope. Never lose hope. One thing that history teaches us is not just to make our solidarity strong as a people, but also to make us personally strong, is to imbibe the spirit of the Bagani, the pre-colonial warrior, who is strong in character. And when we deal with people, we should have pakikipagkapwa-tao because the Bagani helps the one in need. And we can do it in the many things that we can, in the many ways that we can, small or big, every day of our lives. Because if we know our culture, we know that we have Bagani, and we know that we can do something to make others free. So the main point of freedom is to first free yourself. Free your inside, free your kalooban, so that you can give pag-ibig and pakikipagkapwa-tao in order for others to be inspired to also free themselves. And the work that we do is the freedom of each other.
Well, a final word from you, Professor.
Okay, so remember that some people are always saying that, Independence Day is actually the day. Ito yung araw na sinasabi natin na hindi tayo malaya. Ito yung malaya ba ang Pilipino? Araw ng pagtatanong ng malaya ba ang Pilipino?
Malaya
And
ba
for
tayo?
many people, di ba? Thank you for the question. Are we really free? Well, freedom will never be perfect. Unity, solidarity will never be perfect. But if we do not say that we were not free or we are not free, I think uh, we are we are disrespecting the legacy of our heroes. They fought and died for whatever it is that we have now. So we have freedoms, yes. We should recognize it. We should celebrate it. We must be happy for it. But in order to continue the process of nation building, which is long, it takes centuries, I believe that we should look at the things that we have, we already achieved, and to also work for the things that are still lacking in this continuous a continuous struggle to make a more perfect society.
Well, thank you very much, Xiao Chua. Once more, on a yearly basis, you and I are sharing the future of this country, and we do hope that whatever the president has been able to deliver during the celebrations and our people listening to it, you and I will have a great opportunity to discover that Filipinos can come together for the greater purpose of each other, taking care of each other and looking at what is good and great for our country. So thank you very much, Chow, being one of the country's top historians, sharing your views of this year's Independence Day celebration. God bless.
Face the nation.
Today, we discuss history, and we are privileged to have with us Eufemio Agbayani to give us his insights on how historical sites are very important in informing our people of the rich history we have in terms of how we have developed as a country through so many centuries. A pleasant day to you, Eufemio, and welcome to our program, Face the Nation. Magandang araw sa iyo.
Magandang araw din po, and magandang araw din po sa lahat ng atin po mga tagapanood.
Anak, kapag tinitignan natin yung responsibilidad mo, your responses in trying to inform and educate our people on the history of the country, what made you decide to get into this particular challenge and commitment to inform our people on the importance of our history?
When people learn about history, they typically learn about it in schools because as a teacher taught them, it's part of the curriculum. But there are a lot of other means for us to be reminded of our rich past and of the lessons of history that should guide us in the present and in the future. And one of the creative ways that we can do that is through the museums, because if we visit museums, we're like traveling through a time machine. We're going to see the things that our heroes used, pictures from their time. We're going to see the objects that tell the stories. So it allows visitors um, to make a connection with the past, and I really enjoy that. Getting to see these reminders of the past, um, how and what stories these things can tell beyond the usual text. So that encouraged me to join the NHCP and to work for its museums.
How rich is our history, and how aware are our people of our rich history, and what is being done by the national government through your office to ensure that slowly and surely we are developing our information and knowledge of our rich history?
I'd like to believe that more and more Filipinos are being informed of their history, that people are getting more enthusiastic to connect with their roots. Um, we've been seeing increasing visitor numbers ever since we got back to opening after the pandemic, and we think it's really important that maintain these shrines, these landmarks, these museums, because if they're not there, it's going to be really difficult to connect with the past. Not everybody has the talent to research. Not everybody has the access to the sources, to the old documents, to the pictures. And so these museums are the means with which we can make a connection. Um, at the same time, these museums are not just repositories, they're also active places. So we have lectures, we have workshops, we have special exhibits, and we also have commemorative rites in which we honor the memory of our heroes and other illustrious Filipinos through ritual, flag raising, wreath laying, messages from distinguished guests. All of these activities contribute to a greater understanding of what our history is. And it is our hope that people continue to support our museums, and not just Filipinos. We've seen foreign visitors from all around the world appreciating our history through these sites, through these museums and landmarks.
Would you say that the challenges that you face in discovery and at the same time um, assessing the value of one particular item, would you say that we are moving in the right direction?
We're happy that the national government is extending as much help as it can to the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Of course, we can do so much more with much more, but with what we have, we're able to hire staff to keep our museums, to uh, create engaging programs, and it is our hope that through greater visibility, we can uh, do more. Um, Unfortunately, for some places, maybe there are still need for greater help for them. But for us at the NHCP, we're making do with what we have. We're thriving, and we're coming up with ways to be more relatable to the youth, especially. And I have colleagues that are very passionate with what they do and are using the resources that we get from the national government and even from partnerships with the private sector to get more people involved. One big example here, we had for Independence Day, a Pampamahalang Programa and Serbisyo. It's basically a fair where government agencies promote their services. And for these particular event, we had a booth where we were able to sell books. So that's another way we can directly help people be informed of their history. But we also got partners from the private sector to donate some items that made people come to our booth. Things like appliances, which may not be an obvious thing to get from a historical agency, but we got appliances, and so people wanted to win the appliances. They came to our booth, we tell them what to do, and if they don't win the appliances, they still get materials with which they can read about our history. So there's a lot of things that we can do, and we are getting as much support as we can. Maybe we could ask for even more so that we can cover more bases. We can give more attention to places where their histories are not being or there is not an active movement to research about their local histories. But with what we have, we are happy and we are thriving.
How important is this in ensuring that we develop the interests of our people in the history of our country based on what you are able to discover, develop, and produce?
It's really important that we bring something new. It's ironic, we're a historical agency, but we always have to bring something new and something relatable to the people, because if we don't do that, people will just be bored with us. And that's why we are trying to revisit our collection to show what kinds of things people might be interested to look at. We're trying to repackage through social media the information that we've always heard of, and maybe even correct some information based on newly made available sources. We have to be informed because it's what guides us. History is not just trivia. It's not just a good to know thing. Some trivia might be entertaining, but the end goal is to impart values that our heroes had, that made them fight for the freedom of our country, that made them work towards its improvement, and we can only do that not by force. How I wish we could require people to read, how I wish we could require people to visit our museums, but we understand people have priorities. They need to people need to feed their families. They need to work jobs. Sometimes they have little free time, and so with the little that we have and the little attention span some people might have, where we have to impart these values, these lessons of history, so that it encourages them to do their best in what they do, and it encourages them to love their country and to express that love of country to by being good citizens, by following our laws, for standing up for what is right, and for speaking up their minds.
Bottom line, how important is the commitment that you're able to discover from a younger generation, and with the help of the internet, there is we speed up the process of looking at how our young generation develop the interest for culture.
Is very important because um, it's our culture, it's our history, it's our heritage that tells us who we are, that tells us what are the things that we need to do, what are the wrong things that we need to stop, what are the things that can make us proud, that can push us forward, that can encourage us to do our best. Uh, if we don't have these things, we'll just be blank. If we don't know our roots, we might be easily swayed by the wind and be uprooted. But if we know our history and if we are interested in knowing it beyond the four corners of our classroom, if we are actively searching for it by visiting places, by viewing trustworthy documentaries, by asking the right people, and by making ourselves available, um, I think that's going to push our country forward. I remember the words of a suffragette, a Filipino suffragette, Rosa Sevilla de Albero, who once said in a talk she delivered in 1919, without character, there can be no freedom and independence. And that's why now that we're independent, now that we're free, the challenge is for us to build character, to make that freedom and independence real for all Filipinos. And our role in the NHCP is to inspire people, to tell them about the lessons of the past, and to give character to our nation and to each individual Filipino.
Now, how do we develop the interest of our people, especially the young, and at the same time, those who may be living out of the metropolis? How do we ensure that we are able to develop the interest of our youth to become active partners of government in discovering and promoting uh, our history?
Um, we first of all the most basic that we do is be active on social media to share those information online. We also have virtual tours and documentaries that are available on our YouTube channel, so that if someone's interest has already been picked by what we've posted, they can learn more through these videos. It's available throughout the Philippines, wherever there's a good internet connection. We also do trainings with local governments on the different mandates of the NHCP so that they can replicate these activities. What we do, they can also do in their local governments. And we also try to make sources available by writing articles on our website. We're also developing a national memory project where we digitize some of the sources that are available in our library so that if anyone is curious, they can start researching through these online means. We also have the Local Historical Committees Network. It's an alliance of groups that promote local history and heritage throughout the Philippines. We have members from Luzon to Mindanao. We meet annually to discuss best practices and to formulate programs that can um, engage the youth and the public in general about our history. So we're doing all of these things, but perhaps one thing we can look into is to how to make these activities entertaining, because that's what young people, I'm going to claim it, young people like me are very interested in. Yeah, yeah. If it's not interesting, if it's not entertaining, they're not going to look at it. Um, and they're not going to dive deep. But I'm also thankful that there are youth groups. I can mention a few like Renacimiento Manila. I've also met reenactors from the Republica Filipina Reenactment Group. These groups are not directly supported by the government, but they are able to find ways to do tours, to do reenactments, that they do exhibits. And the least that we can do is really to promote what they're doing and to engage them in partnerships. So that's the, that's just some of the many things that we do to help promote history uh, to the people outside of Metro Manila, to and also to our youth.
Final question for you, Eo, is how do you see the future in terms of results? So looking back at what you have started, what you're building on, and ensuring that a great majority of our people, especially the young, discover the importance of our history in terms of what you are discovering and promoting for the welfare of art in this country.
I'm hopeful that people will continue to be um, curious at the very least, interested at the most, very passionate at the most. I've seen groups who are really combating disinformation online, and I've seen groups who are really passionate about promoting our history, our culture, our art, our heritage, not just to ourselves, but to even foreigners. I'm hopeful, but at the same time, I understand, and I think I can speak for the NHCP that we all understand that there's a large challenge ahead. Disinformation is still there. There are a lot of sites that pretend to be official, but are actually not. That's a challenge that we need to face. Um, but I'm hopeful. And one proof that I can mention is that there's now an annual tradition on Twitter. It's a social media platform that every June 12th they would make memes or funny posts about our history. It's funny. It's hashtag RP612fic. It's like a fan fiction, but inspired by history. And the fact that it's been going on for years, every June 12, shows that people are really enthusiastic about sharing our history in their own way. And the NHCP is just here to help. If you need sources, just contact our office through email, records@nhcp.gov.ph, and we're ready to help you with anything. And we're ready to help each Filipino connect with their roots and enjoy the freedoms and learn of the history, learn the lessons of history that help us move forward.
Eufemio, Agbayani the third, thank you very much for joining us. And we do hope that this conversation is the start of a partnership that will enable us to work with you to see to it that what is started by you is going to be sustained with our support. So thank you very much, sir, for joining us here on Face the Nation on this day of our independence. So thank you very much for joining us here on Face the Nation. Thank you.